No education and no rights for women, even in the 19th century? Yes, you heard that right. But before you start attacking me, this isn't my opinion. It's what the United States believed in. Did you have a chance to watch the movie Don't Worry Darling? Because all those weird stereotypes shown in the movies of women cleaning at home, expected to cook for the family, raise children, and prioritize their husbands over all else is exactly what the US looked like back in the 1800s. Education was nowhere close to the kind of history, geography, science, and math that we learn today. Probably sounds ideal if you hated school, but seriously, for women, it was all about learning to be graceful and feminine. You won't believe it, but doctors reported that too much study had damaging effects on young women's ovaries. Talk about medical advancement. I know it sounds super cringe, but one of the biggest reasons we left these awful stereotypes behind was the first Women's Rights Convention, also known as the Seneca Falls Convention. Let's get behind the scenes and look at all the women who made this possible. It was high time, and women were tired of being treated as the sidekick to a man. They wanted to be the main characters of their lives. There was no stopping them. One woman who boldly felt this way was Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She was a leading women's rights activist with a network of 4 powerful, passionate, and bold women ready to fight for their rights. They were literally not very different than the Suicide Squad. I mean, they were outliers ready to go on a high-risk mission in exchange for freedom and power on behalf of all women. Together, they drafted a notice to announce a convention to discuss the social, civic, and religious conditions and rights of women. And boy, oh boy, did they change the course of history. The Seneca Falls Convention Manifesto was called the Declaration of Sentiments. I am so sure it would be called What Women Really Want if Gen Z were to come together and discuss the status of women. The Declaration of Sentiments was written primarily by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, focusing on how all men and women are equal in politics, family, education, jobs, religion, and morals. They stressed on how women didn't have the right to vote, a right that was given to most ignorant and degraded men. Oops, that was a bird. Wait, did you think that these manifestos and conventions were enough to give back the rights stripped off women? They never were. As impactful and inspiring as the Seneca Falls Convention was, it wasn't enough. It took 72 years. That's right, a whole 72 years. From the convention of constant fighting, struggling, and protesting, but never giving up, to finally achieve the right to vote in 1920. Now that was a real achievement. The 1920 presidential election witnessed more than 8 million proud, bold, and empowered women casting their vote. A small step, but a meaningful one for sure. Sure, the Seneca Convention didn't have any immediate impact, but it created a ripple effect that would go on to pay off years later. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and her Suicide Squad received an insane amount of criticism and opposition, but they spent their lives fighting for what we have today. We're not at an ideal stage, and we sadly will never be perfect, but at least humanity as a whole decided to use the Seneca Falls Convention as the foundation of something great instead of using the Mein Kampf, literally published 98 years ago yesterday. Yes, the Mein Kampf, one of the darkest books written in humanity by one of the darkest people in history, was published on July 18th in 1925. And if you really want to know what went inside Hitler's mind, subscribe to Behind the Date to unravel and discover all the dark truths. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. I'll see you back in 1925.